Okay, folks, so I just saw Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning, Part 1. It's a really long title. So, how was the movie? I'll tell you in a second. This video is sponsored by Genucel. All right, so I'm going to start right off the top by telling you this movie's like a 7. It's like a solid 7 out of 10. It's not the best Mission Impossible movie. I believe that was a couple of Mission Impossible movies ago. It has some cool action sequences, one very annoying and overlong action sequence. The plot is kind of meh, but here's the premise. And there are going to be spoilers in this review. I'm just warning you right now. Okay, so there's an IMF agent, Ethan Hunt. Now remember, that is the Impossible Mission Force, not the International Monetary Fund. And Ethan Hunt, who is Tom Cruise, is assigned to retrieve a couple of keys that fit together so they can control an AI entity originally designed to sabotage digital systems. The entity goes rogue, it expands into potential sentience and infiltrates all the major defense and military systems and the intelligence networks as well. And every major power is racing to gain control of the entity by grabbing this key. And the way that they are going to apparently take control of the entity is by going down to the bottom of the ocean and finding the submersible and finding within the submersible an area that has in it the algorithm that controls the entity or some such. So Ethan, because he is a good de Tocquevillian Republican, believes that no one should have this power and that the entity should be destroyed. It's not about taking control of the entity because, again, people who are bad will take control of it, then they'll have innate world power. And instead, he just wants to destroy it. The entity, of course, wants to stop Ethan from doing so. Basically, the villain in this case is an algorithm, but an algorithm can't be a great villain. And so the person who has made the villain is an old rival of Tom Cruise's, played by S.I. Morales, named Gabriel, who's basically just a stand-in for the entity, and also happens to be vicious and likes to kill people. Let's talk about the good stuff about the movie first. So first of all, Tom Cruise is the last movie star. He is a movie star, as I've said before, because he's very dedicated to the job at hand. Meaning he does his own stunts. He plays everything exactly the way it's supposed to be played. He runs very fast for a guy who is, how old is Tom Cruise now? He's 61. He's 61. Dude. I mean, we should all be in such amazing shape at 61. He does all of that because he shields himself from public view. Again, if you were to trace the trajectory of Tom Cruise's career, what you see is highly successful 80s, highly successful 90s, starts talking about Scientology and getting married to Katie Holmes in the 2000s, has like a 5-year down window, and then revives his career by basically going dark again in terms of sort of the public mind. The only time you see Tom Cruise is in a movie, which is how movie stardom works. Tom Cruise does a bunch of really kind of insane stunts, including one where he leaps off of a motorcycle, off of a cliff. He performs some pretty good action sequences, fighting sequences. He runs very, very fast. The best action sequences, there's a great car chase that involves a Fiat. It's actually very funny. It's a very funny sequence where he's driving around a Fiat with the female lead played by Haley Atwell, named Grace. And they're handcuffed together, and so they're kind of flipping seats the whole time. And they're being chased, meanwhile, by a person named Pom Klementieff, who plays Paris, who's sort of this sadistic John Wick killer, and she's just chasing them in a giant car, and it's a pretty good sequence, sort of half Italian job and half John Wick. I mean, up to and including some beats in the actual car sequence that are straight from the latest John Wick film, like driving against traffic. There's some sword fights, very John Wick. Again, this movie is sort of a cross between old-style Mission Impossible from a few years back and John Wick. It's the movie that it's most similar to, clearly, and it takes some action beats from it. Again, there's things like a giant sequence inside a raving nightclub, just exactly the same as John Wick 4. Now, these were contemporaneously produced, so it's not because they're copying from each other, but it's because all movies are sort of the same now. Every fight scene is probably 2 minutes too long. Every action scene is probably 2 minutes too long. The villain is relevant and topical and makes you ask questions about AI, which is certainly interesting and is a big topic of conversation these days. Tom Cruise isn't aging, but you probably are, and I am, which is why I rely on my friends over at Genucel. Our friends over at Genucel sold out of their dark spot corrector, and our listeners have been begging for a restock. Well, I have some great news. Just in time for summer, it's back in stock. Genucel's famous dark spot corrector has not 1, but 3 cutting-edge ingredients and goes to work fast to target sunspots, dark spots, liver spots, even old discoloration, both on your face and your hand. You can now enjoy your summer sun, beach, and barbecue without embarrassing spots. Genucel's most popular package also features their summer essentials, like the best-selling Ultra Retinol Moisturizer, with a powerful retinol alternative for safe use in the sun. You'll be amazed at how quickly you'll see results, or 100% of your money back guaranteed. My wife loves the Dark Spot Corrector. She could not be more excited to find out that it is back in stock. Same with my mom. Go to Genucel.com/Ben right now. Get your Dark Spot Corrector in the Genucel most popular package. That's Genucel.com/Ben right now. Save over 70% off Genucel's most popular package. All orders will include a mystery luxury gift while supplies last. Genucel.com/Ben. genucel.com/Ben. That's genucel.com/Ben. Save 70% off Genucel's most popular package and start looking more like Tom Cruise today, because that dude, he never ages. Now let's get to some of the bad parts. So because the villain is AI, it's kind of omnipresent, and you're not really sure what it wants or what it's doing or what its actual goal is. We just know it's bad and it exists and it has control of a lot of things. So I assume that in part 2, we're going to find out exactly what the entity actually wants. Also, the entity makes a lot of very strange decisions that don't make any sense. Like if you just want to kill off Ethan Hunt, there are 1 million chances for the entity to just kill off Ethan Hunt. It really is not that difficult. There's a whole sequence where Ethan is standing there. The person with the key is not Ethan, it is Grace. And she literally has the key in her pocket. And she slips it into another person's pocket. Now, you're telling me this AI, which is all-powerful, all-seeing, and all-knowing, cannot spot a person slip another key into another person's pocket, which brings us to the alternative title of this film as suggested by producer Zach, Mission Impossible: The Pickpocket Express. The biggest problem with this film overall is that it keeps relying on the same trick over and over. So in the same way that I wasn't a big fan of Mission Impossible 1, using the mask trick 1,000 times because it's a cheat, because you as the audience cannot tell when it's the person wearing the mask very often. Well, it's kind of a cheat to be able to be so unbelievably skilled at pickpocketing that objects just randomly, magically appear in particular places. So it turns out that not only is Grace an amazing pickpocket, but also Ethan is an amazing pickpocket. By the way, Grace is also like an amazing fighter. How did she become an amazing fighter? There are a bunch of plot holes, obviously, but it's not about the plot. It's really just about the action sequences. And there are a lot of really good and interesting action sequences. You see some of, kind of my favorites. Shea Wiggum shows up for a bit, who I really like him. Simon Pegg is good but underused. Ving Rhames is overused because Ving Rhames is always just Ving Rhames. The other big problem, again, with the film is that even the action sequences are now derivative. So we have an action sequence in a desert, and there are now 1 million movies that include this, including Indiana Jones, John Wick 4, and Mission Impossible 4. There's a fight scene in a club, Mission Impossible 4 and John Wick 4. A fight scene on top of a train, which is in Mission Impossible 1 and Mission Impossible 4 and Indiana Jones 5. The car chase scene in the roundabout, as we mentioned, with the doors ripped off, that is exactly the same thing as John Wick 4 and Mission Impossible 4. The problem with dividing the movie into 2 parts is obviously that any suspense is sort of destroyed. I do not understand the entire logical sequence where the AI tells Gabriel that one of the 2 women who Ethan Hunt likes the best has to die. But that's not true. And then, inexplicably, Rebecca Monahan, who we know is amazing with a gun, shows up with a sword but not a gun. First rule of movieing seems to me that there has to be an actual rationale, if you're doing an action movie, as to why a person has a blade but not a gun. John Wick makes the same mistake to me. Like, guns are better than blades, unless you are within a particular distance. Again, it's plot holes like that make me a little bit crazy. Plus, I'll be honest, I like Rebecca Ferguson as an actress a lot better than I like Haley Atwell as an actress, so I was a little bit sad when they killed off Rebecca Ferguson and kept Haley Atwell. This is one of my things. If you're going to make Tom Cruise 61, then Rebecca Ferguson, who is 39, is going to be better than Haley Atwell, who is, I believe, Haley Atwell's 41? Why does she look way younger than Rebecca Ferguson? Whoa, that is shocking. Anyway, overall, I thought the movie was good. I didn't think it was like the best Mission Impossible movie. I'm looking forward to part 2. I will watch part 2. And there are other movies that are coming up in the very near future that I'm going to see, and I will review those as well. So leave a note in the comments if you wish to see me review any other movies that I might be thinking about.
This next shot's gonna be a real bitch, huh?